sugar, hazelnuts, milk powder, cocoa oil, hazelnuts, chocolate, sugar, cocoa. All right, pick one. Hello and welcome back to cooking. Today I want to show you how to make homemade Nutella. Now you might be asking yourself, why would I make Nutella? I can just buy it. To that I say, if you're gonna indulge, do it right. Nutella is mostly sugar and palm oil. This recipe is mostly hazelnut and chocolate. It tastes amazing, it's better for your body, and it's easy to make. So what's not to like? Let's jump into the kitchen. Now this recipe can be tweaked depending on what you like. I made a bitter chocolate, a semi-bitter chocolate, a caramel hazelnut, and a low sugar version. I'll tell you what my favorite is at the end of the video, but I'm gonna include all of the recipes in the description below. The method, however, is the same for all of them. To make creamy homemade Nutella, I recommend using a food processor. You can also use a blender, it just takes a little more scraping, but you may even get better results if you have a super powerful blender. The main ingredient here is raw hazelnuts. This recipe is over 55% hazelnut. Store-bought Nutella only has 13%. You'll also need chocolate. Depending on your taste, I recommend something between 50 and 70% cocoa. Speaking of cocoa, I also like to add some Dutched cocoa, but natural cocoa works just as well. Now to make the texture smoother, I recommend using powdered sugar. If you don't have any at home, you can make it yourself by blending regular sugar in a spice grinder or a blender. Finally, I like to use vanilla and some salt to add more flavor. Don't be afraid to give it a good pinch of salt. It makes it taste so much better. Start by heating your oven to 190 degrees Celsius. Now throw the hazelnuts on a baking tray and roast them for 12 to 15 minutes. You don't want them to get too dark or they will taste bitter, so check them after 12 minutes. A quick way to tell if they're done is to cut one open. If you see a golden color all the way to the center, you know they're ready. Now let them cool for a couple of minutes and then peel them. The quickest way to peel them is to throw them in a tea towel and grind them against each other. This gets most of the skins off, which is fine. You don't need to peel every single one. Seriously, you don't need to. Let it go. Now throw them into a food processor and blend for about 5 minutes, stopping to scrape every now and then. After a few minutes, you'll see it go from a powdery texture to a liquid paste. While that's blending, you can melt the chocolate. I like to melt it in the microwave and then mix the vanilla in with the chocolate. Once you have a smooth hazelnut paste, add the cocoa, powdered sugar, and salt, and mix it all, pouring in the chocolate while the food processor is running. Now give it one last scrape, mix it again, and taste for seasoning. Don't skip this step, it is awesome. You can add more salt, sugar, or cocoa at this point, but this is perfect. Now you can see here the texture is quite liquid at this point, but once it cools down, you'll get something like this. I like to store these in airtight jars, and I prefer not to refrigerate them. None of the ingredients here expire quickly, and I like the flavor and texture better at room temperature. That said, if you do want to refrigerate it, I recommend melting 30 grams of coconut oil together with the chocolate to make it more spreadable when cold. Another version that I liked was to caramelize the sugar in the recipe. Just throw some water and sugar into a pot, and once you have a nice dark caramel, throw in your peeled and roasted hazelnuts. Let them cool on a non-stick mat, then blend and scrape. I like the flavor of this one a lot, and you get the bits of crunchy caramel as well. Now these recipes all have around 22% sugar depending on what chocolate you use, and that is way below the 56% sugar of Nutella. If you want to lower that by half and still have it taste great, you can use 15 grams of powdered sugar and 12 grams of powdered erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol with no calories. It usually comes in granulated form, but you can blend it into a powder the same way you do with regular sugar. I also tried replacing all the sugar with erythritol, but I didn't like the taste at all. Still, 10% sugar and an amazing taste is a win in my book. This recipe is so creamy, nutty, and chocolatey. I'm not much of a sweet tooth, but if I'm gonna go there, this is the way to do it. Now, I think the healthiest attitude towards food is to let yourself indulge every now and then. But if you're gonna indulge, make sure you do it right. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you in the next one. Now, as promised, my favorite recipe has no coconut oil, it's stored at room temperature, and it's made with 50% cocoa chocolate, Dutch cocoa, and a good pinch of salt. This tastes amazing.